I'm 45 years old, and in the past I've run marathons and I've even rowed unsupported across the Atlantic Ocean. But I'm going to try something completely different. In October of this year, I'm going to be on the start line of Ironman Barcelona, and I want to tell you about why I chose Ironman as my next challenge. Reaching the age of 45 came as a bit of a surprise to me, and I think the epiphany that I'm probably past halfway if I'm realistic. If I'm really lucky, I'll live to 90. So there's less time in front of me than I've already had, and that was quite a significant thing for me. If you'd like to join me on this journey, I'd be really privileged if you'd follow this account. If any of you have walked this path before, I'd be really interested in your perspective, and any tips and tricks will be gratefully received. So give us a follow, a like, or some comments, and I'd be really grateful. In my youth, I was quite a talented sportsman, although it feels quite difficult for me to say that. I played rugby to a very high standard. I represented my country at schoolboy level, and even dipped my toe into the pool that was then professional rugby in the late 90s, without a huge degree of success, but nevertheless a very exciting and proud achievement for me. And then life kind of happened. I went to university. I joined a career straight from university that I stayed in for the best part of the next 20 years. I had children. I'm an incredibly proud dad, and I think this realisation that I wanted to be the dad that set a really good example for them, that movement and pushing the boundaries both physically and mentally, even at a personal level, was a really important thing to do for your own sense of achievement and well-being. I continued to play amateur rugby, and it formed the backbone of our social life, and drove me to continue to train every day. And although I wasn't playing anything like the standard I played before, it was something that I looked forward to and thrived on. Any of you that have played contact sports, that you'll know that with the passage of time and perhaps a few more years, and the knocks start to hurt a little bit more. And I broke my arm quite badly when my daughter was very small. The break required an operation and a cast for a long time, and I was unable to fulfil my duties as a dad, and put an awful lot of pressure on my wife with two children under 2. So I decided that was the time really to hang up the rugby boots, and other than a couple of little of occasions where I've come out of retirement, that was the end of my rugby career. And at that point it was the end of my structured team exercise that I was doing on a regular basis, and I underestimated how much impact that would have on my sense of well-being, and how that supported the rest of my life, both personally and professionally, to happen around it. So I didn't do any structured exercise at all after giving up rugby, other than the occasional park run, using the excuse of family life was really busy, professionally I was very busy, and time just drifted by. I put on some weight, and that made starting exercise even more difficult. My 40s were now really rapidly approaching, and I started to believe that I wasn't capable of doing the things that I'd done in the past anymore. But the lack of movement, and perhaps the poor lifestyle and diet choices I was making, inevitably impacted my sense of well-being and how I was feeling about myself. So my self-esteem took a bit of a tumble, and professionally I started to waver a little bit as well. And I think that is probably linked to my lack of physical exercise and the social connections that I used to get through it. So now in my late 30s, and I'm looking for another sport or recreation that I could hang on to, that might give me that anchor that rugby had given me in the past. And for some bizarre reason, I decided that marathon running was the one for me. So at this point, I weighed 17.5 stone, which I think is in the region of about 110 kilograms, about 245 pounds. And I hadn't run more than 5k at a park run for a very long time. So I entered all sorts of marathons and committed relatively half-heartedly to the training that went into the preparation for those, and thoroughly enjoyed completing marathons, but they were a struggle, and by many people's standards, my times were pretty pedestrian, and completing them was a real slog. I'm sure the people you speak to that run 2 hour 12 marathons also work really hard, but my 4.5, 5 hour marathons felt really, really tough. And really my life changed totally by chance. I picked up a newspaper in a cafe, and on the front cover of that newspaper was a picture of 4 bearded, tanned blokes who had just set a new world record for rowing across the Atlantic Ocean. And I thought, that's what I need to do. That'll answer the questions I have about myself and my capabilities. I'll get in a rowing boat, having never been in a boat in the past, not knowing the difference between port and starboard, and I'll row across the Atlantic Ocean. And that'll prove to everybody else and myself that I'm still capable of doing extraordinary things. So I entered this ridiculous race, and you can see the banner behind me for the Talisker Whisky Atlantic Challenge. And in 2021, on the 12th of December, I set off with 3 other friends to row unsupported across the Atlantic Ocean. We were at sea for 37 days. We rowed 2 hours on, 2 hours off, 24 hours a day. And it probably is a video in its own right. But what that process taught me was that I'm capable of more than I ever thought possible. I'm physically and mentally more resilient than I ever dreamed, even in my elite sporting days. So whether I'm 40 or 70, it doesn't matter. I can still do exceptional things that make me proud and will make the people around me proud too. So I undertook while at the ocean that my life was going to change, and that I was going to approach things in a really different way when I came back to dry land. And I did, to a certain degree, for a short period of time. But life is busy, and mortgages have to be paid, and you need to work, and all those things. So I slipped very quickly back into those old habits of not really being very deliberate about pushing the boundaries of my body and mind. Not necessarily in anything as extreme as the Atlantic race, but just in ways that made sure that I was sharp and had something to look forward to and had purpose in my training. So the 12 kilograms of weight that I lost on the ocean went back on again, and my fitness level really deteriorated. So I was sitting down with my wife, and we both reflected on where we found ourselves. And I personally said, I need another challenge. And she just said, you'll have to do an Ironman. Whilst an Ironman, compared to rowing an ocean, perhaps is a very different challenge, all completed, done and dusted, all being well in one day, it's a challenge that is unique in the sense that it's multidiscipline. You can't just be good at one thing. Once you're within the race, you're relying entirely on your own grit, determination and preparation that's going to get you to the conclusion. I knew I couldn't approach it in the same way that I'd approached marathons in the past. That actually, if I turned up unprepared at the start line of an Ironman, I wouldn't complete it. So it's given me some really significant focus and purpose to my training. So I'm now 5 weeks into my formal training to get me to the start line of Ironman Barcelona on the 5th of October of this year. I've got another 19 weeks of training, and this week just gone was the most intense week of training that I think I've done since I was 19 years old. I've done 11 hours between the three disciplines and covered nearly 135 kilometres between the swim, the bike and the run. And don't get me wrong, there are moments of doubt and feelings that I'm not worthy of this challenge, but actually I just need to reach into that experience of sitting on that little rowing boat in the middle of the night, dealing with 40-foot waves, salt sores, sleep deprivation and isolation from the people that really matter to me, to know that I am equal to this challenge. So I'm enjoying the training. One of the biggest challenges I'm finding at the moment is that I'm perpetually hungry. So whilst I'd love to lose a little bit of weight and probably could do that, I'm not in this to get thinner. So I don't want to sacrifice the gains that I make in terms of training and muscle repair and new muscle synthesis by sitting in anything silly like a calorie deficit. So I'm being really careful about what I eat, being very scientific about the way I approach this. So I'm thinking really deeply around obviously what my physical training looks like. And at the moment it's made up of 3 swim sessions, 3 run sessions and 3 bike sessions, and 1 brick session, which is a bike into a run to simulate that feeling of running on tired legs. But that's only one facet of this. I need to keep my mindset in one that is consistent and focused on that end goal, and that visualization of me standing on that beach in the south of Spain, waiting for the klaxon to go off. And every session, every rep, every interval, every high protein meal, every high carbohydrate fueling opportunity builds me towards that. So the physical adaptation and changes I need to make in my body in terms of getting to the start line. Part of that is recovery, so I need to sleep well, be well rested, and I'm going to think about things like the science around the contrast between sauna and cold water exposure to see if that can aid me in my recovery process. But mindset. I love reading books and listening to audiobooks and podcasts of other people that have overcome adversity. I take inspiration from what other people have done. So part of my reason for putting this on the internet and being quite vulnerable in that process is partly to hold myself to account so that I can go back and look and see these videos I've made and the commitments I've made to myself and this challenge. But also there might be somebody else who's sitting in their mid-40s and that realisation that their best might be behind them, and I just want to show that it's not. That you still can achieve extraordinary things regardless of your age, regardless of your physical capabilities, because extraordinary is different for everybody, and it might not be an Ironman, it might be Couch to 5k, it might be parkrun, it might be spending more time with the people in your life that are really important. But you must be deliberate about these things. If you allow these things to happen by accident or default, you'll drift back into those comfortable ways in the same way that I did, that meant that my best was not possible. This video's perhaps gone on a little bit longer than I anticipated, so if you've made it this far, well done and congratulations. I'd really appreciate it if you wanted to come and along and see where this journey takes me. And as I said earlier, any tips and tricks, if you've walked this path before, will be very gratefully received. I'm going to upload regularly, so I'll do a daily short video and a weekly long form one. So have a look at some of my other videos, and hopefully my editing and presenting skills will get better as the weeks go on.